Great. Now, in a post G1 Climax 31 press conference last week, the G1 winner, Kazuchika Okada, declared his intentions to bring back the IWGP Heavyweight Championship version 4 as a symbol of his tournament win. He's quoted as saying, "I won the G1 and I want to face Kota Ibushi again, but I feel there's should be something concrete to represent that. I'm not a champion and I don't have anything to put up. The IWGP Heavyweight Championship that Ibushi retired, though, I'm not saying that people should call me the, what is this word, 60th?"
Yeah, like he's just putting a number in there, like the.
Oh, okay. So he's saying he shouldn't be in the lineage of IWGP heavyweight champions or anything like that. But I want to hold that belt until Ibushi gets back. And it's not. And then he did, in fact. I mean, we can jump to it.
Right.
On the road to shows, he, in lieu of bringing out a briefcase, he did bring out the IWGP version 4 belts. Not only that, but there were other comments that he made to the basically stating, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, that he doesn't care that much about Shingo's belt. This is the belt that he cares about. And then he said, in this press conference, he said, "I'm not the champion. I want to hold this belt as like a physical placeholder." But then he was talking about like, well, why should I challenge Shingo? I've got this belt. He should challenge me. And that doesn't compute in my mind, but that's kind of what's going on right now. So
yeah, I mean, the one thing that I kind of like about it is the fact that he's like, well, I won the G1. Like that should make me like the best wrestler in the world. The champion didn't win the G1. Like I'm better than the champion. So in hindsight, it kind of reminds me, like you mentioned, like, back in the day, like G1 wasn't always for a shot at Wrestle Kingdom or a shot at the title. It was to prove like who is the best wrestler in the company at the time. So with that kind of mindset, like Okada's like, well, I'm the best. I won the whole tournament. Like I should be rewarded in some, like there should be something to recognize me as a champion because I'm the best in the company right now.
So I do kind of agree with that. I think it's important to put emphasis on the G1 itself, but at the same time, there's no denying that, in years past, you had one night of Wrestle Kingdom. That's your WrestleMania. Whoever wins the G1, they're headlining, and it's a big deal because they're headlining against the champion. It's the big protected match. They haven't done it in years. We're going to finally get whatever that is, big business, and it's a huge draw. But over the last couple of years, they've had these weird, convoluted, multi-man title scenarios where the G1 winner is included in that, but it's almost a secondary afterthought to the double gold dash or whatever last year, whatever you would call that. And now that we're going to 3 nights, and now that we have 3 guys walking around with what are basically equated to being the top titles, it just kind of creates a scenario where, like, you can say in one hand, yeah, the G1 winner, it means the most because he's better than the champion, but then the payoff for it is definitely diminished. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The only thing that I like so far about this versus the first 2 double gold dashes is you have 3 guys that all kind of have like legitimate claims to their championships. Like, so obviously you have Shingo Takagi. He won the vacant championship. He is a champion. You have Will Ospreay, who the title was stripped from him due to injury and not being able to defend in time. So he never actually lost. He was stripped. So he does have a claim of being like, I'm an uncrowned champion. Now you have Kazuchika Okada, who just won the whole G1, and it should be recognized as the best in the company. So you kind of have 3 guys, all with 3 claims for being the best. So unlike previous years where you have guys like Ibushi losing the contract, they're in the mix. You have Naito, who lost the IC title, and he's still in the mix. So far, you have guys in the mix that all have a claim to actually being a champion.
They do, and that is true, and I think that's probably the best way of looking at it if you're trying to stay positive about the situation. So that's great. I definitely think I'm the more pessimistic of the 2 of us. And when I look at that, I'm like, the only reason there's so many claims is because there's been so much trouble and turmoil in the company's title scene that it's created these scenarios where people have these quote unquote claims. But like, let's face it, like, Will Ospreay won a belt that was basically seen as like a new title, didn't necessarily maybe have the same like lineage, prestige, and importance as the IWGP title had. And so that was like almost kind of weird at the time. And then he didn't even get to defend it afterwards, really after the whole Shingo thing. Like he goes away and it's almost like it left a big black mark on that portion of the title's existence. Then, like you said, Shingo wins the title, it's vacated, but he never beat Will Ospreay. And in fact, he had just lost to Will Ospreay in the
Twice.
previous match. Twice, yeah. So that's like another big black mark. And you can say what you want about how great he's been in the ring this year and, you know, some of the strong title defenses he's had, but the fact that he never beat Will Ospreay actually kind of diminishes it's why all year people have been saying that the IWGP World Title is cursed because there've been all these kind of things going on. And then you have Okada bringing out a belt saying he's not the champion, but then acting as though he's the champion, which I guess there's some badassery to that, but it also kind of feels like when you're playing with a kid and he changes the rules of the make believe game that you're playing. You know, it's like when other people win the tournament, they didn't get to carry a belt around and act as though they were the champion. When you were the champion, and let's say Tetsuya Naito had won the G1, you know, if he had started carrying a belt around, you would have, like, Okada would have acted some kind of way about that. You
Right,
know
he'd
what
have
I
been
mean?
pissed. Yeah.
Right. But this year, he's not the IWGP champion. He happens to be the G1 winner. He's like, well, you know, I'm the best because I won the tournament, so I get a belt. No, that's not how that works. And he's reintroducing the old version of the belt that everybody loves, you know? But
Right.
what does it represent? You know, and what's on the, you know, obviously, I guess we're going to learn down the line, but you got three guys. I don't like the idea of three guys walking around with the top title because it diminishes the fact that there should have just been one strong world champion all along. And this goes way back. It's not just recent with the creation of this title, although that's part of it. It goes back to the double gold. It goes back to unifying the white and the black belt. So yeah, no, I will tell you, I'm not a fan of it. And even though there is a prospect that the V4 belt could come back, and I know a lot of people like that. I'm sure Okada's getting a lot of support for that. I always liked the idea that an aspect of this story was supposed to be, or at least in my perception, was that Okada has challenged for and never won the world title. It's a new milestone for him to pass. And instead he's acting as though, you know, everything, we're going to reset. Everything that happened this past year was a mistake. I'm gonna carry the belt that I always carried. And it's like, well, but you're not learning from your failure to challenge for the new title. Like this milestone becomes not a milestone at all. It's like when Naito used to throw the white belts around. People are like, well, why should we care about you having that belt?
Right.
When you don't care about it. And I don't like the idea that the ace of the company is uninterested and unrecognizing the true lineage of the new world title that they have. The other thing too, and I'll leave it at this so we can answer some of these questions. I was a huge opponent to them getting rid of that title, getting rid of its lineage and design, and bringing in a new belt. Everyone knows that. But once you've done it,
it's done.
Once you do it, it's done. And then let's say now hypothetically, he brings let's say however this shakes out, Okada wins it all, and he brings back the old belt design. Are we reinstating the lineage of the original belt, and is it just going to be a title that was in recess? You know,
right,
for a year while these or whatever the time period was, while this other faux world title got defended. Are their lineages going to get amalgamated into one another, and they're just going to continue to be recognized? And you know, maybe that's the best way to do it. Maybe you say that this is a full unification and they reinstate the IWGP's lineage into it. Maybe that would be cool. But that almost seems like a retcon.
Right. It gets very sticky depending how they do this and how this turns out.
When you're like a record stats guy like me and you like the idea of the goofy, dinky lineages and who's the true champion and where did this belt come from and what title got passed to what guy, and then you start playing around with it and bringing back the old title and disregarding the new title, it really makes the whole thing messy and murky. And that creates a situation where the title becomes a prop and it's not of the importance that it should be. And for years, the IWGP title has been one of, if not the most prestigious titles out there. So that's like the traditionalist of me is looking at this and I'm like, plus, oh yeah, I guess I'll throw this out there. Plus, it's the third year in a row that we've had to have a convoluted title, situation mandate the ongoings at Wrestle Kingdom instead of having that awesome G1 winner face that awesome champion in that awesome match. You know what I mean?
Right.
So those are my lists of concerns and complaints when it comes to this thing.